By the power of Grey Skull, I have.
Will you pipe down? You'll wake the dead!
Oh, sorry.
Where's that party pooper think he's talking to? We do this all the time!
Hello there, and welcome to another action figure review. I'm Mark from Castillo Collectibles Corner, and today we're going to be looking at Mattel's Masters of the Universe Chronicles He-Man and Battlecat. I was going to do these two separately as two separate videos, but I decided to just put them in one video since they go together. This was really difficult to find in stores, surprisingly. I was surprised at how difficult it was to find He-Man in my area. Thankfully, I had a Target store that had one of them in stock, but I had to ask a Target employee to pull them out from the back. It was the same case with Battlecat as well, and for some reason, there's just a ton of retail stores lately that have just almost been stingy to put out anything Masters of the Universe related for toys, and I find that very weird. But at least the good thing is, I got the figures, and what I have to say up front is there's definitely a lot to talk about. I wouldn't entirely believe all the hype that you hear around these figures, and we're going to talk more about that as we dive deeper into this review. But for now, we'll set them off to the side. Let's take a look at their packaging, starting with He-Man. So let me go ahead and adjust my camera over here so we can get a better look. So the packaging for the new Masters of the Universe Chronicle figures is pretty good. You get the name of the character at the bottom, and then you get a picture of Nicholas Gallitzon's He-Man over here. And then if we look at the side over here, we also have an image of Jared Leto's Skeletor. On the side, we get another image of Nicholas Gallitzon's He-Man. And on the back, we get a read-up, which I'll bring in very closely. You can go ahead and pause that if you wish. And then as we take a closer look at the figure in different poses, you can get an idea for how the articulation is like. We'll get more into that as we go deeper into this review. You get the other figures from this assortment, and not much more at the bottom. Now let's go ahead and take a look at Battlecat's packaging. I would have fit these two boxes into frame, but Battlecat's packaging is huge that I cannot fit it all into one camera frame. So I'm doing it separately here. It's interesting to note that they have a concept art image of the movie version of Battlecat over here, so this one's actually not an official still from the movie. I'm sure they're saving that for when the movie comes out. So you get the name of the character over here, and it's the same thing with He-Man, same deal, but bigger box. On the back, you get a read-up of Battlecat over here, which I'll go ahead and zoom in. So I'll go ahead and zoom in on here. You can pause that if you'd like. And then you have an idea of how you can pose Battlecat based on these demo promo images. So we get some figures from this first wave that I showed you on the back of He-Man's box, exactly the same. And just like He-Man's box, there's not much more at the bottom. Overall, I'm giving the packaging for both He-Man and Battlecat a solid 5 out of 5. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about the actual action figures themselves. I had to take He-Man off of Battlecat and get them posed standing up straight, so I had to do that off camera. But here we have the figures front and center. Let's go ahead and get a height measurement going. So I'll set aside Battlecat temporarily here. And if we take a look at Nicholas Gallitzon's He-Man, he stands a little over 6.5 inches tall. He's almost at the 7-inch mark, but not quite. And then for Battlecat, so I'll set He-Man off to the side here temporarily. If you get a closer look at Battlecat over here, let's see. Battlecat, let's see, to the tip of his mask, and not including his tail. Let's see here. He is, without counting his tail and the top of his battle mask, he measures 9 inches tall, but with his tail and up to the battle mask, the scale is about, I want to say 11.5 inches, so almost a foot long for Battlecat. Now, before we get into talking about Battlecat, we're going to go ahead and talk about He-Man himself. The likeness to Nicholas Gallitzon's He-Man is very good. I love all the details that are shown here that represent his movie look. And at first glance, it's a really nice figure. I know there's been a lot of controversial talk about the new Masters of the Universe movie, particularly with Nicholas Gallitzon's He-Man, and I've noticed that a lot of people have complained that he's not buff enough for the character. But as I stated in my review of the $10 version of Nicholas Gallitzon's He-Man, which you can check out in another video, which I'll link somewhere on this video. It'll probably be a card right on top. Generally speaking, a lot of people cannot meet those exaggerated comic book fantasy proportions. And I'll show you a very good example of that. So I'll set He-Man off to the side over here. So here we have Chris Hemsworth's Thor. And here is the comic book version of Thor. As you can see, there is a clear difference between live action Thor and comic book Thor. You can easily tell comic book Thor is insanely huge. Chris Hemsworth does not come close to this. And yet, he turned out to be a pretty good Thor, despite all that. Another example that we'll take a look at is Chris Evans' Captain America with the comic book Captain America. Now, at first glance, it almost looks like they could be similar as far as proportions are concerned, but you can clearly tell this comic book version of Ultimate Captain America here is a lot more muscular. And if we turn them both off to the side over here, you can see this comic book action figure is a lot more muscular than the official MCU version. And Chris Evans turned out to be a pretty good Captain America. Now there are some other examples of which the real live action adaptations of certain comic book characters didn't necessarily meet those exaggerated comic book proportions. You take a look at Lou Ferrigno. As impressive as his muscular build is, he's not exactly built like the comic book version of Incredible Hulk. Or how about Batman with Michael Keaton? A lot of people call Michael Keaton the greatest Batman of all time in live action, but he's not what you would call a muscular guy, and he's actually the shortest actor to play Batman. And yet, look at how well that turned out. I say those things because you need to understand that when it comes to like these live adaptations of these fictional characters, not everything is gonna 100% directly translate from cartoon to live action or comic book to live action. I thought to just put that in there because I know there's gonna be somebody that complains about Nicholas Galitzin not being buff enough for He-Man, but as it stands, he looks a-okay to me. But back to the figure, all these details are fantastic. So there are 2 running variations of Nicholas Galitzin's He-Man. There's actually one that has a clouded version of the cross instead of this clear like gem that you see online. And the chest harness, the silver part, is more of like a brighter silver than this gunmetalish silver that you see on his chest harness over here. Overall, I'm really happy with how this Nicholas Galitzin's He-Man action figure looks like as far as the sculpt. We'll set him off to the side, and now we'll take a look at Battlecat. First impressions, I dig this design. I know it's not exactly like the original Battlecat design, but you gotta admit that for what they did for the sculpt of this figure, it's pretty dang impressive. And even when you take off his battle mask and you see Cringer's face there, you can see that they did a pretty good job as far as the sculpt is concerned. Even the saddle is detailed to be that movie-inspired look. And something cool that they actually did, which I didn't know was on this figure, 2 things. One of them is, so he has this movable jaw, but when you close it, his teeth get pushed in, so it actually looks like Cringer/Battlecat has his mouth closed. And then when you open his mouth again, the teeth pop out like this. That's fantastic. That's a brilliant idea. Mattel did well on that part. And then if we take a closer look at Cringer's eyes, see how best my lighting can pick it up over here. You can see that he has these glass eyes that as you move him around, he looks like he's following you around with his eyes. The saddle is removable, so I'll show it on camera. You just unfasten it like this. And then, to take it off, you just have to slide this out like this. And then you get Cringer. So that's what he looks like without the Battlecat armor on. So I'll go ahead and get his harness reattached over here. Something interesting to note, a lot of people have said that his battle mask does not stay on him, but it's actually not true. There's actually these tabs on the inside of the mask, and what that's designed to do, it's designed to click onto his fur in a very subtle way, and you have to finesse with it to feel that slight click. And as you can see, I did feel that click when I attached it on, and when I do this, even put him backwards, shake vigorously, it doesn't fall off. So when you get this Battlecat, you're just going to make sure that when you put on his battle mask, you have to finesse with it and just find that point on his head where the mask just clicks onto his fur. These figures are fantastic as far as the sculpt is concerned. For that reason, I'm giving both Battlecat and He-Man a solid 5 out of 5 rating. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about the paintwork. What I love they did for Nicholas Gallatin's He-Man is they added all these weathered details on his chest harness, on his war skirt, his boots, and his gauntlets. Unfortunately, his sword is only this silverish grayish plastic, but it still looks pretty good for what it is. I do have some slight paint issues on mine. As you can see, the gold buttons on his chest harness, some of it is not painted correctly. That's kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. There's even some subtle paintwork, some slight dry brushing on his hair, which looks great. And I do appreciate that his eyes and everything on his face is all good. It would have been cool to actually see some dry brushing on his muscles, but considering what they did, it's good enough. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for Battlecat. So they did paint his stripes, which is great. He does have some paint around his mouth here, which we take off the battle mask here. So he has like some paint over here, and then on his nose. Okay, that's all good. But what's disappointing about Battlecat is he doesn't have any wash on any of his red armor over here, not on the mask and nothing on the saddle. When I first saw this shown at New York Toy Fair based on the images that they had at the time, I already knew that they weren't going to add paint shading to the mask and the saddle, and to see it in person, I just can't help but feel like for the asking price, they should have at least given that paint wash detailing like they did for He-Man over here. Because if they did it for He-Man, and Battlecat is a more expensive figure, why couldn't they have done that? It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And I also don't know if this is supposed to be accurate as well, but I don't know if his paws are supposed to be like this or if they're supposed to be painted black. Because on the other Battlecat that I have, which is from Masters of the Universe Revelation from the Masterverse series, he had his paws black. So I don't know if that's supposed to be accurate with this one, but for the asking price, it would have been nice to actually get a paint wash on his mask and his saddle. So for the final score of the paintwork, I'm giving He-Man a 5 out of 5, but Battlecat unfortunately is only going to get a 3 out of 5 just because that paint wash on the red armor should have been there and it would have made the figure stand out a lot more. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about accessories. So instead of starting with He-Man over here, I'll go ahead and start with Battlecat. Well, if you wanted to count it as an accessory, he includes the Battlecat armor. But that's pretty much it you're getting. There's no figure stand whatsoever. It's just everything you see over here is all that you're getting. With He-Man, on the other hand, you do get his power sword, which I've said earlier is nicely done, even though it's mostly the molded plastic, but it's very well done. And it slides onto the back of his harness really well. And if you shake him vigorously, it doesn't look like it's gonna fall out, which that's great. And he does come with these two-fisted hands that you see on him. And then he comes with these two gripping hands, which I have right over here. And to swap out the hands is much better than the review I did for Scareglow, which those hands were extremely tight, but this one is much more simpler to do. So you just wiggle it around to take it out, and then to pop it back in. That is how you would do that. So now, to get his sword in his hand, all you just need to do is wedge it in there, rotate the ball joint around, and now you can pose He-Man with his power sword. Now I know there's some people that have asked, can you actually slide these down so you don't see the ball on the wrist? You can actually do that. The gauntlets are a separate piece, so all you just need to do is slide that down like this, and now you won't see those balls on his wrist. But for his boots, it doesn't really look like you can push it inward that much more. So however it's looking like right now, that's pretty much the best that you're going to get. But as long as you don't pose him like this, with his foot all the way back, then you should be okay. Of course, they could have engineered that better, but considering what they did for this, it's still pretty good. So I'll go ahead and bring Battlecat back into frame. For Battlecat, I don't think it would be fair to give him a low score, so I'm just going to put not applicable because he's not supposed to come with any accessories, although if you wanted to count it, the Battlecat armor. But for He-Man, the accessories that he comes with is pretty good. I wish that we could have gotten an alternate head with him, so that way it would feel like you're getting the most bang for your value. But at least the good thing is, he comes with matching pairs of hands, although there's one of each on this figure and over here. So for He-Man, I'm going to give his accessory score a 4 out of 5. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about the articulation for both figures. So I'll go ahead and start with He-Man over here. So his head is on a double ball joint where it connects on the neck to the head and at the base of the neck, so he can look down pretty good. For up, it's okay, but due to the way they sculpted his hair, it is a bit limited, but it's okay for what it is. And you can tilt his head in any direction. It can go around like this. He's also got this ball jointed shoulders that have the disc inside. It allows for okay range, but it doesn't work the same as a butterfly joint. If Mattel is going to keep using this kind of style of bodies going forward for their MOTU Chronicles line, and potentially their upcoming DC collector line that's supposed to be out for next year, they need to find a way to incorporate actual butterfly joints. Because for Spider-Man Unlimited over here, you can see how well it works for this figure instead of the ball jointed shoulders. Give us actual butterfly joints. That would make this figure a lot more better, and I'm sure that you can still pull off flawless sculpt, or at least mostly, without having to make heavy sacrifices. Okay, so his arm can go all the way out like this, and then it can spin around all the way. And go ahead and put his power sword on the back. You get a bicep swivel that works great. You get double jointed elbows that work import style, so they bend a little past 90 degrees, but it's still good for what it is. And then he has these ball and swivel wrist that you can swivel the ball in any direction, and then you can swivel the wrist to hinge in any direction. I'm surprised to see that his ab crunch and his waist articulation works better than Scareglow's, but it still doesn't give the range that you could hope for. It looks like he can crunch forward, but really that's the harness making it look like that you can, but he crunches forward a little bit better than Scareglow, but not by much. And then going back, it's only about that much backward, but you're not really getting a whole lot of range in the torso. Now, I know a lot of people have complained that there is a gap where his waist connects, but as long as you just finesse with him, have him posed, you're not really going to notice it. That will bother some people, but take that as you will. His waist joint works pretty good. It has pretty decent range. And then for the hips, he's got those drop down style hips. So without using the drop down, he can kick forward that far, almost 90 degrees. And with the drop down hips, he can kick forward at an angle about barely 90 degrees, but personally, you can get away without using the drop down hips. There is no thigh articulation, but they did clear excess room where the legs connect, so you can twist it around a little bit. Some people don't like that, but that is there. There are double jointed knees that work really well. He's got a boot swivel that works great. And then he's got these ball and swivel ankles. So you can swivel them like that and hinge. And then he's got the ankle rockers. Now we're going to go ahead and go over Battlecat's articulation. So I'm going to go ahead and take off his battle mask over here so you can see his entire articulation, his entire posability. So his mouth can open and close. That's how it looks like closed and open. You can move his head up about that much without using this neck joint over here. And then looking down, he can look that much down. And then off to the side, it's about that far to the side. And then on the other side, not using the other joint, it can go, he can look off to the side like this. And then using the neck joint over here, it can give you more range, but not by that much. And here it is going on the other side, which works a little better. And then he's got these, what appears to be, let's take a look here. So it looks like he's got this swivel and hinge legs that swivel out that far forward, and then going back can go that much backward, and then it can go out about that far. Then on his legs, at the middle of it, he can bend inward that far in. And then the other way, that's how straight as you're going to get. They can swivel around. And then you've got these ankle joints for his feet. It's the same on the other leg. But if we take a look at the back part of him, so he's got this diaphragm joint that will allow you at 2 points to crunch to the side like that, and then going the other way, that's how much far forward or far off to the side. And then back, it's about like this, and then forward, that's as far as you're gonna go. Now for the tail and then his other legs, so it works about the same as the front legs. So you can swivel them, looks like all the way around, and then they can go out to the side that far. And then he bends at this point of the leg, this far inward, and then straight, it's that far forward. And then where his ankles are, that's how far back you're gonna get. And then far forward, that's how far it goes. It swivels, just like this part of the leg does as well. And then he's got these ankle joints like on his front paws. So they hinge and have those ankle rockers. And that's pretty much all the articulation that you're getting for Battlecat. The articulation's pretty good for what it is. I've got to say that I can't help but feel like when I'm moving the joints around on He-Man, he just feels pretty stiff in some areas. When I mentioned it in my Scare Glow review, which you can watch that video, I'll put a link up in this video for that review. But in my Scare Glow review, I talked about how it was really hard to move the arm joints at the shoulders, and it just created so much friction that it felt like I was forcing it up. Luckily, they can pop apart, so you can get a small Q-tip, put a little bit of dish soap, put it around the ball joint where it connects, then push it back in, swivel it around for a little bit, and then give it about half an hour to an hour, see how it's doing, and then you should be able to articulate the arms no problem. But the Chronicles figures I've had so far, they tend to be pretty stiff to pose. And I'm not really a huge fan of that. For Battlecat, his posability works pretty good for the most part. I do wish there was a little bit more range where his stomach area is concerned. And probably they could have been better engineered the articulation in his neck and for his head, the legs, and his tail. So he does have articulation on his tail that can hinge and then swivel in any direction. Those are pretty good for what they are. So for articulation, I'm gonna give He-Man a 3.5 out of 5, and Battlecat is going to get 3.5 out of 5. Now we'll go ahead and move on to the playability. So these figures look like they're a ton of fun to pose around, but like I said, I can't help but feel like they're not that fun to handle compared to the Masterverse figures. I know these are styled like cheaper import style Mafex SH Figure Arts action figures, and at first glance that can be impressive to look at, but there are some things that they need to improve going forward. As far as like the playability is concerned, The box says it recommends these for ages 6 and up, which I'm not sure if a 6-year-old can really play around with these, just because given the nature of how stiff some of their joints can be. I just feel like, you're gonna give this to like a 6-year-old or to like a kid. You're better off getting the $10 basic figures, and these figures are more for like the collectors. But even me being a collector myself, these don't feel that much fun to handle compared to Masterverse. And also, another thing that's a huge bummer about Battlecat here, at the bottom, there's already a crack where this is. And that's very unfortunate. I was not thrilled to see that. I was just posing him around not roughly, as I do with a lot of my figures, and this part just cracked on me. So there is a noticeable crack right over here, which I'm pretty disappointed to find in a figure this expensive. And there goes his mask. Pretty disappointed to find that there. But I'm sure you're wondering, how do these figures compare with other action figures from different lines? Let's compare our brand new movie He-Man with Cartoon Collection He-Man. So this is how he would look like next to him. I'm sure you're curious to see this specific comparison, but here we have our new movie He-Man with the MOTU Classics He-Man. And now let's compare him with some other action figures from different lines. If you're curious to know how he looks with some Marvel Cinematic Universe action figures, here he is compared with the Marvel Cinematic Universe Avengers Endgame Captain America with the Deadpool and Wolverine, brown-suited Wolverine. They scale pretty well together. Here is this new movie He-Man compared with the Target exclusive Marvel Legends Black Widow, and compared with the Retro Kart Series Spider-Man Unlimited action figure. Here is our new movie He-Man compared with some DC Universe Classics action figures. Here we have Batman Beyond and our classic Wonder Woman. Let's move He-Man off to the side. Now we're going to do some comparisons with Battlecat. So you've already seen how he stands with the movie version He-Man. Now we're going to stand him next to some other He-Man action figures. Here we have the Masters of the Universe Classics action figure. Here he is next to Dolph Lundgren's He-Man, which that would have been cool if in the '87 movie we got to see Battlecat there. But he looks great with them. It wouldn't be to scale, but I'll show it anyways. Here is our new Battlecat compared with the $10 basic He-Man action figure. Here is our new Battlecat compared with our cartoon collection He-Man over here. See him compared with the MOTU Origins He-Man. And here is our new Battlecat compared to the 40th anniversary He-Man over here. Now let's get an idea of how each He-Man figure will fit with Battlecat. Here's our new movie Battlecat with the MOTU Origins He-Man on top of him. Here is our new movie Battlecat with the cartoon collection version of He-Man. Here is our new movie Battlecat with the Masters of the Universe Classics He-Man. Here is our new movie Battlecat with Dolph Lundgren's He-Man, the Super 7 MOTU Classics Rebel Leader He-Man. Here is our new movie Battlecat with the Masterverse 40th Anniversary He-Man. Here is our new movie Battlecat with the Masterverse MOTU Revelations Battlecat. So that's how they look like facing the front. And let's see, facing the side. Let's see here. That's how they look like side by side. Something I almost forgot to mention with this new movie Battlecat, a lot of people think that He-Man cannot stay on Battlecat when you position him on there. The new movie version, there's this little horn right over here on the saddle where He-Man can be seated. What you can do with that is you can sit him on top like this and then get He-Man's open grip hand from his left side, and then all you do is you can open the fingers as wide as you can, and then you slide it in, so that way when you have this figure posed on Battlecat, you will see that with some finessing, he can look very good. So he's not going to easily fall off because he's holding on to that saddle, but you can see he fell off a little bit, but not completely. But that is designed to keep him there, so if you're playing with him, he stays on, and you don't have to worry about He-Man falling off Battlecat. And wouldn't it be an action figure review without comparing him to our good friends Herman and Grandpa Munster. Here is our new movie He-Man and Battlecat with the other versions that are out of the same character. We have the Masterverse version on the right side, and we have the Origins versions to the left. Compared with a lot of options that are out there these days, this is pretty good for what it is. Both He-Man and Battlecat get a playability score of 4 out of 5. We're going to go ahead and talk about the value. I've got to say, when I first heard these figures announced, I knew I needed to have them in my collection, at least He-Man and Battlecat anyways. But the one thing that really devastated me was finding out that for the collector's 6.5-inch action figures themselves, instead of it being $24.99, they decided to raise the price to $26.99, which is ridiculous because these would have been great at $24.99, and Battlecat should have only been $39.99, but instead, now he is $42.99. I can't say I'm pleased with the price increase for these figures. It's really hard to say that they're worth the value because $26.99 for He-Man and $42.99 for Battlecat. After sales tax, that is almost coming out to $80. So for both He-Man and Battlecat, the movie versions, you'd be paying $80 almost. If they had been about the same as Masterverse, it likely would be worth it. I'm only going to give the value for both He-Man and Battlecat a 2 out of 5. Now we're going to talk about the final thoughts. Are these the definitive Masters of the Universe movie figures to get? Well, that depends if you actually want to spend the current asking retail price for these. If you buy these online, you obviously need to pay for shipping and other fees associated with that, so that would drive up the cost even higher. If you're only going to order one Chronicles action figure like He-Man, depending on where you buy him from, you're almost going to pay $40 altogether for that figure alone. If you personally ask me, it's too much for just one action figure. Even Battlecat, more so, he'd be more expensive than if you were to just find him at retail and then purchase him there. I just feel like they're too overpriced. They should be lower, but the prices are what they are. But honestly, I can't say these figures are worth the asking price. But all things considered, I'm giving both He-Man and Battlecat an overall rating of 3 out of 5. They're not terrible, but I wouldn't say that they're entirely great either. I still find myself gravitating more towards the Masterverse style figures. I know for many collectors, the Articulation is a bit dated, but I still find those figures overall better quality than these new Chronicles action figures. Where can you buy the new Chronicles He-Man and Battlecat? I got both of them at my local Target store, so you can start finding them over there. The new Chronicles figures have started showing up at some Walmart retail stores. As for online, you can pretty much find them almost anywhere that you can think of that sells Masters of the Universe action figures, but just be prepared. The price tag is pretty steep for the current asking retail. Thanks for watching this action figure review. If you enjoyed it and found it very informative, consider becoming a regular supporter. Subscribe to this video channel, so subscribe to my Substack publication for additional content related to the toys that we love, and you can support my work by making a one-time or monthly paid contribution through my Buy Me a Coffee link, all of which you can find in the video description below. With that said, I wish you nothing but the absolute best.